chapter closed in the long cycle of lives he had endured. Seo lay on the grass, staring at his hand in disbelief. He realized that he had regressed once more. Memories of his past life began to surface. He remembered how, in that life, he had fought relentlessly until the very end. Clenching his fist tightly, he recalled the moment with pride. He had finally achieved what he had been striving for. With overwhelming emotion, he clenched his fist and shouted to the sky. After countless struggles, he had finally done it. He had reached the peak of martial arts. At last, he had attained the strength and mastery he had longed for his entire life. Just as he was recalling the moment, John came running angrily, shouting at Seo. "What the hell are you talking about?" His face twisted with rage as he accused, "It's your fault, you crazy bastard!" Meanwhile, Seo remained calm, barely reacting to the outburst. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes as a confident smile formed on his face. With certainty, he murmured to himself, "I see it." The furious Jaeon swung his hand down in an attempt to strike, but Seo calmly tilted his body and dodged with ease. Shocked and angry, the man shouted, "You're dodging." With his eyes closed and a calm expression, Seo thought to himself that he could still clearly sense everything. He knew exactly where John Myung-hoon's next strike would land. Seo moved smoothly, avoiding each attack with ease. He reflected that before, he could dodge strikes even with his eyes closed. But that was only because he predicted the trajectory of his opponent's moves. That ability came from decades of martial arts experience. Seo realized that this time was different. It wasn't just prediction based on experience. It felt more like true foresight, as if he could clearly see his opponent's next move before it even happened. He realized the truth. No matter how many first-rate martial artists there were, none could ever defeat someone who had reached the peak level. Such masters could clearly see the trajectory and direction of attacks from those weaker than them. Against that kind of power, how could an ordinary martial artist ever hope to stand a chance? His eyes glowed with a sharp blue light as he focused intensely. With determination burning inside him, he thought to himself, "This time, I realized something new. I can instinctively sense it." The glowing blue lines revealed his opponent's openings and showed him the best possible trajectories to strike with. He noticed the difference in his vision. Red lines revealed the paths of his opponent's attacks, while blue lines guided him toward the most optimal counterattacks. He thought to himself that the gap between John Myung-hoon and him was simply too vast. That overwhelming difference was the reason he could see so many openings in his opponent's moves. Seo's eyes widened in surprise as blood trickled from his nose. Shocked, he couldn't understand what had just happened. Clutching his head in pain, Seo gritted his teeth as blood ran down his face. "Damn, it hurts. It feels like my brain is on fire." The realization struck him. Could this vision be overloading his brain? Breathing heavily with rage, John Myung-hoon swung his fist at Seo while shouting, "You bastard! You nearly got us all killed, and now you dare to dodge my attacks!" In an instant, Seo struck back with precision. John's eyes rolled back as his head snapped to the side, sweat flying off his face from the sharp impact. He collapsed to the ground, knocked out cold. Seo stood over him calmly, while a group of colleagues rushed over in shock, shouting, "Section Chief John!" Seo clutched his head, still feeling the strain from the overwhelming vision. One of his colleagues approached with concern and asked, "Deputy Manager Seo, is he all right?" Seo wiped the blood from his nose and let out a deep breath. To think it had hurt this much after using it for such a short time, he thought, frowning. What could be the problem? After the fight, Seo took a moment to steady himself, and then reassured his co-workers. Once he had calmed them down, the tense atmosphere began to ease. He led them to a cave and started a fire to keep them safe. After cooking some fruits for them to eat, he watched as they slowly drifted off to sleep, finally able to rest. Inside the cave, his co-workers lay scattered around the warm fire, fast asleep. The crackling flames filled the silence as they found a moment of peace after the chaos. While they slept, Seo stood outside under the night sky, practicing with a wooden stick. His movements were sharp and precise, slicing through the air as leaves fluttered around him. With a swift strike of his stick, Seo cleanly split a falling leaf in two, showcasing the sharp precision of his movements. He looked at the branch in his hand with a faint smile. "Without using a single bit of ki, I managed to slice a leaf clean in half, with just this dull branch," he thought, realizing the precision of his control. Seo reflected on his ability. The vision of martial peak seemed to predict his opponent's moves, and his brain interpreted them, displaying red and blue lines before his eyes. Seo analyzed calmly. If he used this vision, he could read all of his opponent's movements and strike at their weaknesses with the most optimal counter. At last, Seo understood. So this is why Director Kim called it the memory of all five senses. It's actually a replication of a peak martial artist's vision. His eyes glowed with sharp blue light as he realized the truth. Director Kim had been forcing him to enhance all 5 senses and manually calculate his opponent's trajectories. As Seo held the branch, countless blue lines spread out before his eyes, mapping every possible path. The vision of martial peak is truly incredible, he thought in awe. Seo stood firm in the forest clearing, leaves swirling wildly around him. With the branch in his hand and a calm yet sharp gaze, he radiated quiet confidence, fully immersed in the power of his newly realized vision. Slowly, he closed his eyes, shutting out the world around him. In the darkness behind his eyelids, memories of battles and warriors resurfaced vividly, as if guiding him toward deeper understanding. In his mind's eye, Seo saw countless warriors in green robes charging forward with swords, axes, and spears, each strike fierce and deadly. Their movements overlapped like echoes of battle, as though he were reliving the experiences of countless martial artists at once. Seo moved with fluid precision, weaving through the storm of phantom warriors. Each swing of his branch struck perfectly, guided by visions of countless martial techniques, as if he were fighting alongside generations of masters within a single moment. In his vision, the warriors shouted fiercely, their blades flashing as they attacked from every direction. The scene was chaotic and relentless, a storm of martial fury pressing down on him all at once. As dawn broke, the forest bathed in the warm glow of sunrise. Amid the quiet rustle of leaves, Seo exhaled heavily, his breath ragged from the intense training and visions he had endured throughout the night. Drenched in sweat, he let out a relieved smile. Now, he muttered, exhaustion mixing with determination after a night of relentless training. Standing tall with the branch still in hand, Seo looked out at the morning light with unwavering confidence. I've finally reached the proper martial peak, he declared to himself, his heart pounding with triumph. Suddenly, Seo clutched his head in agony, gritting his teeth. His brain felt like it was about to fry to a crisp, the strain of his newfound power overwhelming him. But after he found 8 yellow bamboo roots nearby and performed the dragon vein chi method, he managed to stabilize himself. Now, he could maintain the vision for 3 whole hours. Seo looked down at the bamboo roots and thought to himself, now that I've reached this level of prowess, I no longer need to sell these yellow bamboo roots. I can resolve financial issues with my own abilities. As for the leftovers, carrying the remaining roots back to the cave, he glanced at Director Kim, who was snoring loudly in his orange jacket. Seo set the roots beside him. Director Kim slept soundly, unaware of the intense training Seo had just undergone outside. Seo sat quietly in the cave, deep in thought. In my memory are 6 volumes of Director Kim's research, as well as his final teachings before he died, he reflected, feeling the weight of the knowledge entrusted to him. Looking at the man sleeping peacefully, Seo thought, if I pass this knowledge to him, this life's Director Kim will surely surpass the previous one. Now that I've reached the martial peak, the teachings I can receive from him will far exceed what I gained in my past life. Leaving the leftover roots beside Director Kim, Seo stepped out of the cave once more. He still had no clue how to reach the next stage, but unlike his co-workers, he knew there was only one option for an idiot like him: train endlessly, to continuously maintain a peak master's vision and allow his brain to adapt to it. That was his path. Seo's eyes narrowed with determination. My first goal in this life is to resolve the burning pain I suffer when using this vision. And then, Seo envisioned his ultimate goal, to finally attain the level of the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Glowing blue lotuses shimmered in his mind's eye, symbolizing the pinnacle of mastery he longed to reach. Seo walked out of the cave with firm steps, his fists clenched in resolve. I will reach what is known as the pinnacle of martial peak, the 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Morning arrived, sunlight spilling over the mountains and forest, marking the beginning of a new day filled with determination and resolve. The enormous fox, known as the master of the forest, appeared once more in this life. As Seo knelt and stretched out his arm toward the beast, curiosity filled his heart. His sharp blue eyes gleamed with anticipation as he wondered, will I see red lines with this fox as well? However, to his surprise, the fox's body glowed with a fierce red aura as waves of pressure rippled through the air. There was no blue. Seo's eyes widened in shock as his vision was overwhelmed. It's red everywhere. The fox's bloody jaws snapped open, its fangs dripping with menace. Seo froze in terror, his thoughts trembling. He realized he couldn't win. Staggering back, blood splattering around him, he clenched his teeth in confusion. Just what is this? He thought desperately. How could the entire area in my vision be filled with red? A few days later, under the night sky, cultivators descended from the heavens. When they arrived, Seo was once again left in shock. The cultivators floated high above, their overwhelming presence distorting everything around them. Seo's vision flared, his heart racing in disbelief. Again, it was all red. Sweat dripped down his face as he stared in horror. He realized the difference between a martial artist and a cultivator. There was no opening, no chance of victory. Even a martial peak master would struggle against the weakest of cultivators, those only at the first star of the chi refining stage. The day after the cultivators took his co-workers, Seo turned to Seo Hueol, the Sea Dragon King, and asked a question. With a respectful gesture, Seo bowed slightly and said, "A humble mortal asks the great Sea Dragon King a question." The Sea Dragon King tilted his head with a faint smile and replied, "What is it?" Seo explained everything he had witnessed, and then asked about the mysterious red sphere the cultivators carried. The Sea Dragon King chuckled softly. "Cultivators possess a special kind of consciousness," he said. "It is sometimes called divine consciousness. While a mortal's consciousness does not extend past the brain, a cultivator's consciousness spreads outward, engulfing the surrounding area. I, too, as a spiritual creature, possess this ability." After explaining, the Sea Dragon King turned to leave. Seo bowed respectfully and thanked him. Meanwhile, Director Kim watched in confusion. Since the conversation was spoken in the language of Yangguo, Director Kim couldn't understand a single word. Shortly after Seo Hueol departed, the hunchbacked old man appeared once more, controlling a puppet at his side. This time, he came to take Manager Kim away. Without warning, the old man hurled Seo and Director Kim into a swirling spatial rift, dragging them into the unknown. The two were suddenly plunged into deep waters, their bodies sinking helplessly after being cast through the rift. Seo struggled underwater, bubbles escaping his mouth as his eyes widened in shock. "What the?" Panic surged through him. He pulled himself toward the surface, his hand gripping wet sand as he dragged himself ashore, frustration clear in his voice. "It was on top of the trees last time, now it's in water." Seo stood on the shore, wringing the water from his clothes, while Director Kim lay exhausted on the sand. Gasping for breath, Director Kim finally woke, panic in his eyes, and asked Seo where they were. Seo, still calm despite the situation, answered firmly, "Somewhere completely different." He buttoned up his damp shirt while scanning the surroundings. Judging by the landscape, this is the Chickenhead Lake of Yangguo. Changho City should be nearby, he thought. Director Kim let out a frustrated sigh and asked, "Seo, what should we do now?" Seo glanced around the empty shore and replied, "If there were people nearby, we could ask for directions." He pointed across the shimmering water. There appeared to be some buildings across the lake. Director Kim squinted, then nodded quickly. Seo dove into the lake without hesitation, telling him, "I know how to swim. I'll go there and get us some clothes and food." Kim Young-hoon panicked, calling out, "Seo, be careful." As Seo swam across the lake, he muttered in frustration, "What did we squeeze the water out of our clothes for then?" Still, his thoughts sharpened. If my memories serve me correctly, that building is a bandit's den. I wiped them out in my previous life. He recalled his past encounter. Their leader had been in the late stages of first rate, the vice leader in the middle stage of first rate, and the rest were just second and third rate small fry. Of course they had numbers, so he had used poison on his blade to take them out. Suddenly, one of the bandits turned his head, narrowing his eyes. A moment later, his expression shifted to shock as he noticed someone approaching. Seo emerged from the water, droplets streaming down his clothes as he walked toward the shore. The bandits burst into laughter. "Who's this fool? Doesn't even know where he just swam to?" One sneered. "Get lost if you don't want to die." Another spat. Seo ignored their jeers, fists clenched tightly, his steps steady and determined. One of the bandits charged, raising his club with a furious roar. "Didn't you hear me? Get lost." But Seo stood firm, unfazed. In a flash, he struck with overwhelming force, sending the bandit crashing to the ground with a thunderous impact. The man's weapon flew from his hands as he was slammed down, defeated in an instant. The other bandits froze in shock, their eyes wide. He took him down with one hit. Seo casually picked up the fallen bandit's weapon, giving it a quick test in his grip. With a faint smirk, he muttered, "Not bad." As Seo walked calmly onto the shore with the fallen bandit at his back, he asked the bandits, "How many people have they killed?" The muscular bandit raised his massive spiked mace, veins bulging with rage, ready to attack Seo. He told him that he's killed 50, and that he will be happy to send him to them. But before the bandit could even finish his retort, Seo's strike ripped through him in a blur. Blood sprayed into the air as the giant stumbled, his mace slipping from his grip. Seo stood calm and unshaken. The surrounding bandits gasped in horror, fear flickering across their faces. Seo's cold voice cut through the silence. From here on out, anyone who's killed before can come at me. From the tall wooden building overlooking the camp, watchful eyes peered down. The leaders had heard the commotion. Inside, they lounged around drinking and laughing, women pouring wine as they reveled without care. One of them roared in amusement, while another yanked harshly at a bound woman. "Come here, bitch!" he barked cruelly, making her cry out in fear. Just then, a bandit holding a cup of wine paused mid-pour, eyes narrowing toward the noise outside. "Who the hell is that?" he muttered. The doors burst open, flooding the room with blinding light. SEO stood at the entrance, his silhouette dark and menacing. In one hand, he gripped a bloodied club. In the other, he held the severed head of a bandit, letting it dangle for all to see. The room fell silent. Terror crept into every corner. Seated on a grand chair draped in tiger skin, the bandit leader glared with a cold sneer, his hand resting on the head of a growling tiger at his side. He muttered darkly. Then, raising his voice, he roared, "Kill that rat!" Chaos erupted. Armed men drew their swords, surrounding Seo. The women were shoved aside, cowering in fear, while the leader sat back on his throne, confident. Seo tightened his grip on the club, his eyes burning with cold resolve. "No need to ask. You're all going to die." The aftermath was painted in blood. Bodies of bandits lay scattered across the ground,